Lots of people are throwing in the towel on the American dream of owning a home. And here's why I make that statement that the American dream just seems to be fading. I really feel for people who have that American dream. They want to do it. They want to get out there. They want to get out of the apartment life. They want to own their own home, but it really is getting out of reach. And that's very perplexing because in today's home buying environment, it's actually less expensive to buy a home today than it was 5-6 years ago. So why is the American dream of owning a home fading? Why is it getting so much more difficult? Well, today we're going to find out why. Also, we're going to find out how one shift in mindset can really make a difference and that you can be on your way to home ownership if you just adopt this mindset. You might remember that when the coronavirus came over to the United States, the Fed got involved pretty quickly. They wanted to make sure that interest rates remained low so that the housing market would remain strong. Now, so far, so good, especially for sellers. Rates are super low, so the same home that you would have bought just a couple of years ago is significantly less expensive payment-wise than it was back then. So you would think that that fact alone would be enough to make it easier for people to own a home. But just wait, we'll get to that in just a second. But in a moment, you're going to see why that has made a negative impact in some respects. So here's the market environment. When a home buyer wants to go out and make the purchase on a home in Phoenix that is, south of $400,000, they can count on lots of competition. That's because there's not a lot of inventory on the market. In fact, us realtors can't seem to keep up. As soon as we list something, it sells very quickly. Right now, the average day on market is 8 days. That is just incredibly fast. Now, there are homes that sell a lot faster than that. The ones that take longer are just probably severely overpriced, but 8 days is not very long. And who is coming to compete for those homes? Well, a lot of people. You've got investors who want to get a hold of a rental property that has a low payment that they can rent out and make a monthly profit on. You've got people moving in from California who have owned homes over there for decades, and now they can take their wealth that they were able to build in California and move it into the Arizona market and expect to buy something for a lot less money, maybe several homes, and be able to just push the average Arizona buyer just out of the way because they've got so much money. This is why I feel so bad for people who are in that predicament. The people coming over from California, they're not evil. They just want to have a better life too. So everyone's always trying to improve, right? We all want to have a better life. But if you're a person who has been renting for a while and wants to get into the housing market, maybe you've disciplined yourself and saved up some money to be able to do that. And you think because you've got 5% saved and a little bit of money saved for some closing costs that you're going to be able to compete. And what you're finding is you get out into the market, you make your offer on a house, and all of a sudden there are 6 or 7 offers within a day or two, and you're competing with maybe a cash offer, maybe a couple of other offers that are 20, 30, 40% down. And if it gets really nasty and super competitive, people are waiving their right to inspect the home, or they're waiving the appraisal contingency, which basically says if the appraiser comes along and decides the house is not worth as much as you bid on it, that the bank is not going to underwrite that loan. But so what that means is people with a lot of money who want to bid a little bit higher on a house, let's say it's on the market for 400 and they want to bid for 10, and the appraiser comes along and says it's only worth 400. Well, that buyer might have enough money to where they're willing to say, I'll just make up the difference with cash. I'll do that. Whereas that 5% down buyer is really kind of stuck. They've got their 5% saved, good for them, but they don't have a whole lot more. So when that buyer comes in who's willing to pay above and beyond the asking price and get rid of the appraisal contingency, they just can't compete because the person with 5% down isn't able to make up the gap between the asking price and the selling price, and the bank is not willing to make up the difference for them. So we've got high demand from the first-time home buyer, and we've got high demand from the buyer who can just afford to pay more. So the scenario I just described to you, where there are 7 buyers within a day or two all bidding on the same house, you know what that's called. bidding war. I've actually got a video right here about that. You might want to check that one out later on. But these bidding wars are one of the major components that are forcing that first-time home buyer out of the market. There's just sometimes no room for them. And what happens is these buyers go from house to house and making bid to bid to bid. And after a while, there's just this buyer's fatigue that sets in. And then they'll come to us and say, you know, I guess we're just going to rent. We're running out of time. We budgeted a couple months to look before our lease ended, but we've been on 3, 4, 5 houses now, and we haven't got any of them, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And man, I got to tell you, I really feel bad for people who are in that spot because, you know, they've done everything they need to do to become a legitimate homebuyer. They've exercised discipline, and the market is just so brutal right now that if you really want to own a home, you've got to do some additional things in order to be able to stand out and get that house. So what about rents? Could you just continue to rent for a while? Would that make sense? Well, it might, but if your plan is to become a homeowner eventually, then it really doesn't. It actually pays to continue to press in and do what you need to do to get your house. And here's why. It's because right now, where the interest rates are right now, the market is showing no signs of slowing down. In other words, for the next year at least, the market is not going to slow down. And, you know, a lot of people come to me and tell me that that's their premonition, is that the market is going to turn in their favor and prices are going to fall and interest rates are going to stay low and everything is going to be hunky-dory someday. But I can just tell you that that is not going to be happening anytime soon at all. And our market tends to appreciate at about 3 or 4% per year on average. Yes, it's been going up a lot more than that recently, but if you wait, the only thing that's going to happen is you're just going to be paying more money. And that is because interest rates are low, demand is super high, and supply is either low or flattening out. Right now, supply is kind of flattened out. Supply has leveled out, but the demand has not stopped going up. So it's not just that demand is high, it's that demand is continuing to rise. So as long as that's the case, there's going to continue to be tons of competition for these houses. So if you want to get in on one, today is your best bet. Not a month from now, not a year from now, right now. Here's the other thing. Rent prices, they're on the rise also. In fact, in the last 5 months, rents have gone up 12%. That's giant. I've never seen rents soar that high, that fast, and they are showing no signs of slowing down. Eventually, it'll get to a point to where people just can't afford it anymore. But with the current interest rates being so low, people can own the same home they could have bought 5 years ago for less money, even though the home is priced higher. That's because interest rates make that much of a difference. Okay, so we've heard enough about the trap of continuing to rent and not buying. We've heard enough about that. So what do you do? Well, there are a few things that we can do. Number one is we want to have a full tool belt so that we can have all these different small tools working in your favor so that when the right house comes along, you can get it. So here are a few of those things. Number one, we want to have you fully pre-approved for a loan, not just pre-qualified where some lender on the internet pulled your credit. We want to have all your documentation turned in and have a lender who can get you fully pre-approved up front so that when you go make an offer on a house, it doesn't look to the seller like you've still got a bunch of stuff to do in order to be able to make that purchase and follow through. Next, you want to be working with a local lender, not an internet lender who no one on your team has met before. If you're working with an agent, use their lender. You'll be glad you did. Now, make sure you've interviewed real estate agents before you hire one. I've got a video about that right here. I've also got an entire series for home buyers, so make sure to check that out too. And thanks for watching this video. See ya.